Hey guys, I'm Colin from Brilliant Labs and welcome to my web tutorial. So today we're going to be learning a bit about HTML and then we're going to get into things like JavaScript and jQuery, PHP, databases, and we're going to end up building a blog. So if you don't know what most of those things are, that's completely fine. We're going to start on Google and we're going to want to install something called Visual Studio Code. Now I'm going to be doing things pretty slow in this tutorial. So if there's something you already know, sorry for that, but there's a lot of people that are going to be watching this that have never coded before. So I'm going to be going over everything as thoroughly as possible. So we're going to download this stable build. Wait for it to download. Okay, it looks like it's good to go. Let's open it up. I'm going to click I accept the agreement. Add to path, create a desktop icon if you'd like, next, and then click install. So I'm not going to click install because I already have it installed on my computer. So just finish that and then check back when you're done. Okay, so I'm going to create a new folder on my desktop and I'm just going to call it Summer Camp 2020 website. Awesome. Now we're going to open up Visual Studio Code while we're waiting for that to load. I'm also going to be showing you guys how to host a website for free too. So you're going to actually be able to take what you've created and put it online. So that's going to be super cool. So we're going to click File and Visual Studio Code and we're going to click Open Folder. And then we just want to go to our desktop and click Summer Camp 2020 website or whatever you named your folder. And then we now have our environment set up. So we're going to right click here and click new file. And we're just going to make a new file called home.html. And now we have our blank HTML page. So when creating HTML, you're going to want to create an HTML tag. And then closing the tag should automatically create the ending one. That's why Visual Studio Code is nice because it knows HTML. You could technically do all of this in Notepad, which is also important. So if you can't install Visual Studio on your computer for whatever reason, you can use Notepad, Notepad++, or any other way that you can just make an HTML file. Visual Studio is just much better. So then we're going to create a head, and then we're going to create a body. So our head is stuff that most people don't see, tags that you can search for in Google, for example, and other things. Our body is what is going to be the actual content of the page. One exception to that is if we add a title. We can title this Summer Camp. And then so that's going to create a title at the beginning, but I'll show you that in a minute. And then in body, we're just going to type in P. So that stands for paragraph. And we're going to do the typical hello world. So now we're going to hit Control S to save our file. This is really important. Continuously hit Control S almost every time you type a new line of code because you never want to run into a situation where the program crashes and you lose all of your code. So now all you have to do is go to the folder that you created this in, so Summer Camp 2020, and you'll notice home.html is here, and it will have the icon of your default internet browser. Mine's Chrome. So I'm going to double click it. And then as you can see, we have this hello world. So you've already created an HTML page. So what HTML is basically just like the template. So it's not actually programming. A lot of people think it is. There's no code in HTML. All it is the layout. Now there's a bunch of different HTML tags that we're going to want to get into. Most of them we're going to learn as we go because there are so many of them. But I'm going to go and show you a few just to start. So our first one is going to be input type equals text. And then we're going to have placeholder equals enter your name. And then if we close our input and we save and we refresh this page, we're going to see there's a text box and it says enter your name. And that's a placeholder. And because it's a placeholder, if we type something into it, such as Colin, because that's my name, it will remove the placeholder. So that will only be there when there's zero text. So each one of these things is going to have these attributes. So this is type, for example, is text, and placeholder. These are attributes. There's another one called value. And if I set this one to be colon right from the get-go, you'll notice that when I refresh the page, it automatically has colon in here. So later on, when we go to reference this text box in code to maybe display the name or enter it into a form or something, we're going to be referencing the value. So that is the attribute for this text box. But I'm going to clean that up right now. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to put a button. And we're going to do onClick equals display name and then put brackets. Now that doesn't make any sense yet, but once we get into coding, we're going to use this button to call a function called display name, and I'll show you what that means. And that is going to display the value of this input. Okay, so then we'll close it off and we'll just write display your name. And then if we refresh the page, you have a button. So as you can see, it doesn't do anything, and remember, because HTML doesn't actually do anything, it is just the template. So if we check out w3schools.com, this is an excellent way to learn a bunch of stuff. So if we click Learn HTML, you'll see all of these tutorials, so you can go through so many of them. So if anything that I'm talking about in this kind of confuses you, it might be great to go through this on your own. Just click next and just keep going through them. So you'll see they have the body tag, they have the paragraph tag. This H1 makes a big paragraph basically. So if I type in H1, type in title, if I refresh the page, it'll be a big title. So if you're looking for something, you can typically just find it and then copy and paste. BR makes a new line. So if I want a line between this input and this button, we can type BR, refresh the page, and there you go. Now obviously it might look better if there was two of them. Cool. So if you wanted to know that, you could technically go into like Google and type how to make a new line, and you would find a post that would tell you to type BR. So if you're ever at a point where you're trying to do something that's not in this tutorial or something is confusing you, definitely use Google. So now that we have that mini HTML tutorial out of the way, we're going to go into some JavaScript. So we're going to write script and then hit enter. Okay, so anything that we have inside of this script tag is JavaScript. So remember, if you try and do any of this code outside of this script tag, it will register it as HTML and it won't work properly. So we're going to type function and we're going to type display name. Then we're going to put the brackets, and then we're going to put a curly brace right beside the P key on your keyboard, hold shift, and then hit enter. So what a function is it's a bunch of code that you can put and call multiple times. So if you don't want to reuse code, you can use a function. So we can have 10 lines of code, for example, that display the name, and all you have to do is type in display name and it will call those 10 lines of code. This won't be 10 lines of code, I can't imagine, but so something that's really important is we need to learn how to use the console. So we're going to type console.log, and then in brackets, we're just going to put test. So this is going to log the word test into our console when we call display name. Now, of course, because our buttons on click says display name, when we click our button, it's going to call this function, which is then going to call this console.log. Another thing that's important is the function names are case sensitive. And what that means is if you typed in a lowercase d, it wouldn't register it as the same function. So you have to make sure it's spelled completely correct. So then we're going to save. We're going to refresh our page. And then you're going to hold Control-Shift-I. And that will open up the developer tools. Different internet browsers have different things, but if you go to inspect, right click and inspect, it should just open it. So now we'll open our console, which has nothing. But if we click display your name, it'll say test. Cool. So we use a console a lot because it's a really excellent way to test things out. For example, we want to display our name, but what if the initial call wasn't working? What if we had have had a lowercase d? This is a very quick way to test and say, okay, our function works. So the next thing we're going to want to do is create a variable. Now, a variable to a computer is something that holds a value, and almost everything holds a variable. So you might think like a total could be like the number in a cash register after you add a bunch of items up. So we start to declare a variable by typing var, and then we type a word that we will then use to reference this variable. We can call it whatever we want as long as it's not already there. So you can't have a variable that is named name and then have like another variable named name. But we're going to call this name. And then we're going to set it equal to, we'll just call this test again for now. And then semicolon to end the statement. So variable name equals test. So then if we take this console.log and we put it down here, and we remove these quotes, and now if we put in name, and then we refresh our page and click display your name, it will say test. Awesome. So the reason why this is happening is because we reference name in the console.log, and name equals test according to the computer, so it displays our test value. But instead of test, we want to display our name. So we're going to use document.getElementById. And you'll notice that because of Visual Studio Code, it just helps you do this for you. So I'm going to hit enter. And now we need to type in an ID that represents our input value. We haven't set one yet, so we're going to now. So we're going to type in ID equals name. Now you can only have one ID in the entire thing. So like we couldn't have another ID equals name. They have to be unique. You could have ID equals name 2, you could have ID equals n, but you can't have two IDs that are the same name in one HTML page. So the reason why is because in this document.getElementById, we can now type in name, and now our JavaScript code has linked to our input based on this ID. Now remember, we don't actually want to grab the entire input box. That wouldn't really make any sense into this variable called name. We only want the value. And remember, value is the property that holds whatever the person types into the input box. So now we have this variable called name, which will equal our input box, and they're linked because ID equals name, and we grab getElementById name. And this is just memorization, and then .value. So then we're going to console.log our name. So now if we go back and refresh, type in colon and click display your name, it'll display colon. But most people won't actually see the console.log. So instead we're going to type alert, and we're going to alert our name. An alert is a function that is already built into JavaScript. And what that does is when you put a value into it, it displays it on the screen. So we're going to test that out. Make sure you refresh your page. Type in colon or whatever your name is, click display name. And there you go. So we've already displayed our name. We've learned a little bit of HTML. We've learned a little bit of JavaScript. So we're going to move on to our next section now.